Greetings and welcome to this live broadcast from MelVee Broadcasting Network. What a privilege it is to come to you tonight, wherever you are. It might be morning, it might be evening, it might be afternoon. Greetings and welcome. I'm Melusi Ndhlalambi from MelVee Broadcasting Network. Tonight's topic is a blockbuster. It's a topic that will get any Bible student wagging their mind, really wanting to understand, where does Christianity come from? Where are we right now? What's happening in the Christian church? And what is the future of our religion or our way of worship as Christians, the followers of Christ? And to help me discuss tonight's topic is a familiar guest that we've had with us in this series, Dr. Watson Mbiriri. Greetings and welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and hello to everybody.
Yes, I'm so privileged, and I know I'm sitting here for Pastor Jabba. I know, Pastor Jabba, you're held up with your ministerial duties, so I really relish the opportunity to sit in this hot seat to talk about a very hot topic.
Yeah. Yes.
Which way for Christianity? I've seen that Christianity is a relatively new religion compared to the other religions.
Yes.
And we want to talk about where we come from, where our faith comes from, where we are now.
Yes.
And particularly with a very vested interest on Africa.
Okay.
We are the divine voice out of Africa. So we really want to diagnose what's happening on the African landscape for Christianity.
Yes, that's right.
But also to talk about the future. Where are we going? And I want to leave our viewers out there with hope and also understanding that this is not just a religion that's just around. We really are headed somewhere. We are a movement.
Yes.
So to begin with, to our viewers out there, if you're joining us tonight, this is the topic we're talking about. And please feel free to leave your comments, to leave your questions. You might have burning questions about Christianity. Please do drop them. We hope to also answer them on our second segment after the musical break. So please stay in. We're going to be sharing something very special towards the end of this program, and possibly also to answer all your questions. So Mfundisi,
yes,
let's start from the top. Give us a synopsis of the global status of religion in our postmodern era. Is religion still relevant? Maybe that's the other question I have. And what is the status of religion in the world?
Religion is still very relevant in many people's lives because it is the one that shapes people's worldviews. It contributes significantly to the shaping of people's worldviews and basic understanding of what's going on in the world. It gives meaning and significance to life and our existence for many people. So you find that different people from different parts of the world ascribe to different religions. And currently, according to some of the latest research or findings by like Pew Research Center, for example, you'll find that Christianity, as of 2015, Christianity is considered as the religion that has the highest number of adherents. Okay, at 31.2% of all religious people in the world. 31.2%, that's Christianity, followed by Islam at 24.1%. Okay, and then followed by unaffiliated.
All right.
People that do not ascribe to any religion. Okay. So we might say agnostics. Okay, people would just say, well, I don't know if there's God or not. I don't know. Agnostics, they just say, we don't know. People that are not affiliated. So that is 16%, followed by Hinduism at 15.1%, and then Buddhism 6.9%, and then folk religions. So all the way from Hinduism, Buddhism, folk religions, essentially we are talking about the Asian region. That's where many of these are concentrated. That's where the highest concentration is. So when you're looking at these percentages, what we are looking into is basically the number of adherents and also the spread. How widespread geographically the religion is. So Christianity is still considered at the top so far, but the trends are projected to change if all variables remain constant. Yes.
And I guess when we come to Africa,
yes,
there's a predominantly large number of countries and populations that are Christian. And I think this owes itself to the coming in of colonialism and the fact that these mutually benefited each other. The coming of colonialism and the coming of Christianity.
Yes.
But I think I'm also quite interested to, and I'm sure our viewers would be interested to know this, we are not the oldest religion.
Yes.
We've been, perhaps, we could actually be called the new kid on the block.
Yes.
But what has contributed to this Christian faith growing so rapidly to become the largest faith in the world?
Okay, part of the answer to that is in what you said earlier, in phrasing and framing the question. So when we talk about Christianity, in the context of Africa, usually we are going to go global to really satisfy the other part of the question. I want to attend to the first part where you framed it. So in many people's minds, when we think about Christianity and Africa, we just think colonialism and so on. But actually, there are many scholars who argue to the effect that Christianity should be considered an indigenous religion in Africa. Because Christianity was in Africa long, long before colonialism came into the continent. So, for example, in Ethiopia, Ethiopia has embraced Christianity for generations before any colonization took place anywhere. And in fact, Ethiopia is one of those countries that were not colonized.
Yes, that's true.
The oldest Christian church in the world is in Ethiopia. Okay, so, Jesus also visited Africa as a baby though, but he did visit Africa, and one of the people who helped Jesus carry the cross finally to the point of his crucifixion was an African from North Africa. So Christianity has been in Africa for much longer, although our latest experience with it came in with the symbiotic relationship between colonization and, of course, the Christianization part that took place. And now, coming to the factors that contributed to the growth and spread of Christianity, as you rightly said, it's one of the young religions, because there are many other religions, like Hinduism, for example, which dates back even to the 8th century, the time of prophets like Amos, Hosea, Jonah, in the Old Testament, long before Christianity would come. So these other Asian religions were already in place. But Christianity has grown to this point where it is considered the world's largest religion. But a number of factors come into play and a lot of history. But maybe I'll be fast, quick on that. Number one, when you read in the book of Acts chapter 1, Jesus says to his disciples, do not go anywhere. Wait in Jerusalem because you are going to receive power. So there is this power which is given to the first proponents of the religion. And with this power, they are propelled to go and until it was said at one point in time when Paul and Silas were being accused that they'd turned the world upside down, the Roman Empire.
And the gospel had gone to the ends of the world.
It had gone to the ends of the world. In other words, it had reached the furthest points of the Roman Empire at that time. So and then the conviction of the early proclaimers of the Christian message, which is also linked to the power which they were given. So they had such conviction. Paul was stoned many times, suffered shipwrecks, flogged, and left for dead at other times, but they never stopped. And this conviction in and of by itself was so appealing to those who were non-Christians. And then there was also disillusionment that was taking place in the first century, taking place with the Greco-Roman religions, the religions of the Greeks and the Romans, which were predominant at that time. There was disillusionment with those religions. Mostly that disillusionment was emanating from the scholars, the philosophers. They discredited the religions that many people ascribed to. And they said, well, this is just nonsense. It doesn't make sense at all. So a lot of people didn't have anything to hold on to. But then came these people who were coming from Palestine, and they were so strong and convicted on this. And this was so appealing to a lot of people. And maybe let me finish. by stating that in addition to all this, there was also the relationship, or what happened, particularly the circumstances surrounding the emergence of what we know today as Roman Catholicism in Italy. How Roman Catholicism came onto the platform, basically as with Constantine, Emperor Constantine, around 311 AD, when he embraced Christianity. It was a marginal religion, but when the emperor embraced it, it became fashionable. A lot of people became Christians. And later on, it was given even more prestige by Emperor Justinian. And then the Roman Empire was moved from Rome to Constantinople. And then left the bishops who were in Rome with a lot of power and influence and affluence. And this all made it possible for Christianity to grow. And Christianity was intertwined with issues of nationality and political governance. And then lastly, Christianity also went on to develop schools and institutions, particularly beginning with the Catholics, with the Jesuits, led by Ignatius of Loyola. And this development of universities actually comes about because of Christianity. So all these factors contributed to the spread of Christianity.
And actually from the coming in of the Catholic faith. And bringing in not just a Sunday school program, but a very strong community and human development aspect. It really addressed the needs of the people in the countries where they went to. But one cannot run away from the fact that with all that power and all that authority and the combination of church and state power resulted in a very terrible time for the world, perhaps which is one of the reasons why Christianity is disliked by many people. We talk now about the Dark Ages, when the church began to be so powerful that whoever questioned its authority was declared a heretic. Talk us through the role of the Dark Ages and all the crusades we saw against certain countries and nations and the persecution of over millions and millions of people that was done by the church. And this is one of the very dark points of history. And I remember when I was still a university student reading a letter by the Pope apologizing for what the Catholic Church did in killing millions of our Protestant brothers. And that's what caused them to run away to America. All right, so walk us through the Dark Ages and how this faith still grew in the very darkest of times.
That was a difficult time, mainly focusing in Europe, because most of these developments took place in Europe. So with the bishops gaining so much power and prestige and wealth, unfortunately, as human nature is, there was also quite a lot of corruption that came in with that. And intolerance, levels of intolerance could never be higher. They were so high. And I think there was quite a lot of departure from the simple teachings of the gospel as it is. As an example, issues that became topical, As an example, issues to do with indulgences, Things became associated with you have to pay money for you to be forgiven. You can even pay for your relatives who are not believers who have died. You can even pay for future sins that you commit. You can have it. So all these kind of things, these are things that eventually some of the people said, wait a minute. I mean, where is this coming from? So people like Martin Luther on the 31st of October 1517 in Wittenberg, he then nails those arguments, 95 of them, against quite a number of things that the church was doing, but particularly the issue of indulgences, the church collecting money as a means to forgive sins and giving receipts as guarantees that sins are forgiven. And that's the money, by the way, that was used to build St. Peter's Basilica, the Catholic Church's biggest church in the world, which is in Rome. So it was these kind of things. So people like Luther were Catholic priests. You have all these many people that then begin to say, no, let's go back to the Bible.
Sola Scriptura.
Sola Scriptura, Sola Gratia, and these kind of things. And so it is there because now there's perceived interference with the source of welfare or funds for the church.
Yeah.
And so the church begins to attack its own members, and they are labeled as heretics. I can never forget the moment when I stood at the spot in Constance where John Huss was executed.
All right.
And 10 months later, his friend Jerome
Yeah.
was also executed at the same spot. And also being on the Rhine River where
Yeah.
their ashes were scattered. So this is real. It's not like imagination.
So
or
you actually went to these places?
Yes, I
You
went.
saw it.
I walked all those places. Luther, I've been in Luther's house, and all the way from where he was born,
Yeah.
where he went to school, I mean, to the place where he's buried.
Yeah.
I've walked through
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
So it's been over 500 years
Yes.
since the nailing of those theses on the wall.
Yes.
And it began a new movement that we now call Protestantism.
Yes, that's right.
And out of Protestantism, many denominations have
yes,
come
also
along.
came out. Yes.
And we are here today as the Seventh-day Adventist Church, having also recently came up
yes.
in the 19th century.
yes.
But we want to now understand, before we go to the break in the next few minutes, what Christianity is said to be a dying religion. Perhaps we need to be very clear, what does that mean? What are the statistics showing us right now? Is it dying everywhere? Is it really relevant? We hear young people are leaving the church. They're no longer interested in the church. And this ideology of Jesus who's coming in the by and by. So right now, as a pastor and as a member of the church and as a scholar, where do we stand in terms of our faith?
Christianity, I think maybe dying, to say that it's dying may be a bit too strong.
Okay.
But it's rather shifting poles, or so to speak, because historically Christianity, as we know it, has basically been in the western part of the world, and that's for 400 years. Actually, it was incubated and nurtured there, and then spread to the rest of the world. So, but as of now, Christianity is growing phenomenally.
Okay.
In other parts of the world outside of the Western areas like Europe and United States and Australia. It's growing more in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, but fastest in Africa.
Yeah.
It's growing fastest in Africa. So what we find, for example, in 2018, about 50 million people joined Christianity in Africa.
Wow.
So Christianity,
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a big number. And Africa is about 1 billion people, or slightly over that, and about 630 million of those are Christians. Okay, so Christianity, and maybe I can break it even further down.
Yeah. Because I'm quite interested, and I'm sure our viewers are also quite interested.
Yes.
To say it is growing, but what is this? Is this the old-time religion that we know is growing, or there are new models and new African Christian churches that are not really, cannot trace their roots to Europe, and even their practices today may need to for one to look very carefully to check whether they're still biblical. So maybe just walk us through that. And I'm not here to judge any church or any faith, but we just want to lay the facts bare. What type of Christianity do we see in Africa?
The kind of Christianity we see in Africa is, to a large extent, for people that have really taken a lot of time, like missiologists like Paul Hibbert, we have taken quite a lot of time analyzing and studying what's going on. We find that there is quite a lot of syncretistic kind of faith. And by that, we simply mean that there is combination of Christianity and some traditional elements, or elements that come from African traditional religions.
All right.
Okay, African traditional religions. I can maybe give it as an example that at one time I'm aware that in Harare there was a religious functionary or a prophetess or something like that. She had two regalias at any moment. If someone came with a traditional problem and thought that their problem could be sorted using African traditional religion, this person would put on this regalia and its paraphernalia and say, well, and throw the bonds and things like that. But if someone came and said, I need someone to pray for me, she takes off this one and she puts on the Christian gown. I mean, it's one person.
Wow.
So this is many of us do not go about with two different kinds of, but it is the reality of many Christians on the African continent. When it's okay, they're in church. But when the child gets sick, they go somewhere else.
Yes.
So there's what is known as the challenge of double allegiance. Double allegiance. But I would also not want to paint everything with one brush, because there are African traditional churches, or in African indigenous churches.
Yes.
They have a different way. They have a different way of functioning.
Do these include the apostolic
Yes,
churches?
it's essentially, yes. But
in South Africa, we have many of them that don't trace their history to
oh,
the
yes,
Protestant movement.
that's very true. And
ZCC, I think it's one of them.
Yes,
there's IPCC.
There's IPC and there's Shembe.
Shembe as well.
From
and
KwaZulu.
these are quite big Christian movements.
Massive. They're massive.
And so Africa is a melting pot.
Yes, it
of
is.
religions, if
It
I
is.
can use that word.
It is.
Now, I want us to take a musical break, and I think to our viewers out there, I really want you to stay on with us, because we want to drill a little bit deeper on this issue of Christianity, and we still have to talk about Christianity in the African perspective, but I also want us to talk about the future of this religion. But in the meantime, please remember to send us your questions or your comments. Let's go for a musical break, and we'll see you in a moment.
Nkosi, Nkosi sigelela, Nkosi sigelela, sigelela, iAfrika. Maluphakanyiswa, luphakanyiswa, phondolwayo, izwa imithandazo, izwa imithandazo yethu. Sibe moya munye, sibe moya munye. Noma sekunzima, sekunzima, sihlukunyezwa, kabuhlungu. Nkosi sipha amandla, sipha amandla okunqoba, silwe nosathane, silwe nosathane.
umhlawe sabathangos sibuye sawubona indlu yakho yobungcwele sibuye sayingena ngena nokungena kwethu sibuvubukho bakho sithi inhliziyo zethu zamkele izwi lakho zamkele izwi lakho zamkele izwi lakho sithi inhliziyo zethu zamkele izwi lakho zamkele izwi lakho zamkele izwi lakho sithi inhliziyo zethu zamkele izwi lakho bona izitaka zakho uzikhuthaze zonke zize ziwathethe namhla amazwi akho wonke bakho ongabanika lentsikelelo yakho kwanabo bayimilwelwe abangekhoyo apha abangekhoyo apha abangekhoyo apha kwanabo bayimilwelwe abangekhoyo apha abangekhoyo apha abangekhoyo apha kwanabo bayimilwelwe abangekhoyo apha siqondise inswelo zethu ukuze sizibike sibonise ubona kwethu nobutyakala bethu xothi ingcinga engendawo ingasixakanisi nenkumbulo engendawo ingasiphazamisi 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 nenkumbulo engendawo ingasiphazamisi 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 nenkumbulo engendawo ingasiphazamisi 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 nenkumbulo engendawo ingasiphazamisi inkumbulo engendawo ingasiphazamisi nenkumbulo engendawo ingasiphazamisi inkumbulo engendawo ingasiphazamisi nenkumbulo engendawo ingasiphazamisi nenkumbulo engendawo ingasiphazamisi inkumbulo engendawo ingasiphazamisi um, on the theme of heaven. This is one of the songs that was covered by many quartets when I joined the church. In a little while, we will be going home. Let us sing a song that will cheer us by the way. In a little while we're going home, for the night will end in the everlasting day. In a little while we're going home. We will do the work that our hands may find to do. In a little while we're going home, and the grace of God will our daily strength renew. In a little while we're going home. In a little while, in a little while, we shall cross the billows foam. We shall meet at last when the stormy winds are past. In a little while we're going home. There's a rest beyond, there's relief from every care. In a little while we're going home, and no tear shall fall in that city bright and fair. In a little while we're going home. In a little while, in a little while, we shall cross the billows foam. We shall meet at last when the stormy winds are past. In a little while we're going home. In a little while, in a little while, we shall cross the billows foam. We shall meet at last when the stormy winds are past. In a little while we're going home. In a little while, in a little while, we shall cross the billows foam. We shall meet at last when the stormy winds are past. In a little while we're going home. 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 Amen.
Welcome back to this segment. I'm Melusi Ndhlalambi from MelVee Broadcasting Network. We've been talking about a very pertinent topic, a hot topic about the way forward. Which way for Christianity? Where do we come from? Where are we? And in our last segment, we talked about the African continent and the faiths that we have in the region. Thank you for sticking with us. Now, we talked a little bit about the role of the African faith, and we see the type of Christianity we have in Africa. Please do remember to send us your comments and your questions. We'll be very happy to interact with you. So Mfundisi, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you.
You said something that I actually can identify with. So while I was doing some of my work in the country of Botswana, yes, greetings to our viewers from Botswana, I actually was working with traditional healers.
Okay.
And we were just looking at how we can integrate them into the health system, especially in the fight for TB and HIV. And I came across a traditional healer who told me, yes, I have my African consultation room this side, but when things get a bit difficult, we also move to the Christian space. And there was a Bible and a gown and a pulpit.
Wow.
And so the syncretistic
that's
religion, we see it a lot.
That's a real syncretism.
But and again, we've seen a new movement
Yes.
in Africa besides that traditional African religion, indigenous. We've seen a new wave of prophets
Yes.
And I'm wondering whether it's Africa only that needs prophets, Christian prophets, or what is happening in the world as well. What are we dealing with this new movement?
Yes. I think it's quite interesting, actually, when I've interacted with so many friends from different parts of the world, and like for some of my friends from Asia, when the time I was living in Asia.
Yeah.
And, you know, telling them about prophets, they say, I mean, what are you talking about? Because they only know about prophets in the Bible,
Wow.
many of them. And I was just saying, maybe we can even export prophets from Africa to to Asia.
We have so many
and
of them
maybe
here.
earn some foreign currency, I don't know. Yeah, but it's, in my view, I've not done a study on this, but this is just what I think.
Yeah.
That to an extent, it's an extension of the African spirit medium person, that African religious functionary, the person who would be possessed by a madlozi or something like that, and then be able to tell things and give information which nobody else has access to. And hence, we find that there is such an explosion of self-proclaimed prophets and people that are always saying that I was shown this, I was shown there's someone big is going to die in Southern Africa, something like that, you know, things like that. Yeah. So I think basically it emanates from the African traditional religion, but maybe I can also add something. The bottom line to that kind of phenomenon is the charismatic movement. Largely, we find that in Pentecostalism, but the charismatic movement is broader than Pentecostalism.
Yeah.
It also goes even into mainstream churches. So, for example, there are people who may be Catholics, but then they are charismatics as well.
Charismatic Catholics.
Yeah, charismatic Catholics,
Yes.
you know. So, and some studies suggest, or some studies suggest that about 1 in 4 Christians are actually in the charismatic movement. Yeah, so I think this is a particular expression of it in Africa.
All right.
When it comes out with prophets. I think it really comes from the spirit mediums as religious functionaries in the African context.
Yeah, one author, Pastor Papu, I think was presenting at the Bible Symposium for SID, and he really did a very wonderful way of describing the African indigenous religions and their belief in miracles, the Holy Spirit being manifested, the speaking in tongues, you name it, and that it has become a new form of religion in Africa. But that new form of religion, the question I have, and I think this includes all religions, all faiths, particularly all Christian denominations, are they meeting the needs of the African child, mother and father? And in the whole, you are a Bible scholar, in the original purpose of the Christian church, are we still doing that which we were asked to do as the Christian church?
I think we have a continuum. The different Christian denominations are attempting to meet the need at varying degrees, with varying degrees of success. Okay? So by that I mean, you'll find that particularly the Christian church as it comes into Africa from a Western expression, many of these mainstream churches, Christian churches, some of them remain very conservative and almost quite distant from the African person.
All right.
So, in other words, not addressing the African worldview. You see? So, but then there are others that go so much as to get almost a risk syncretism itself. Okay? But I think what is important there is for us all to be aware of the importance and significance of contextualization. The faith is the same, but then it has to be contextualized so that it expresses itself in a way that an African, or if it's in Asia, an Asian can identify with, if it's in the Middle East or something like that. So contextualization is a very important part, and I think some churches have done it well, and others are still lagging behind. And I could give a simple example.
I was actually going to ask you to give us a practical example that shows contextualization.
Yes, that's right. Thank you. So, for example, you'll find that some churches, let me not quantify and say many, but some, when the missionaries came, those missionaries basically condemned everything African, okay? Everything African out. And then we're going to start afresh. You guys need to be serious and everything. So including, let's say, instruments that are used in worship.
Music.
Okay, in music.
Yeah.
Okay. So just throw everything out. Now you have to bring in the piano and things like that and so on and so on.
Yes.
So as if they're demons that live in a drum.
I actually am laughing at our viewers out there. We did another production with Joshua Mapong. I'm sure you know him.
Yes, I do.
He says when in our churches, when we hit the drum, boom, Jesus leaves. But when we play the piano, he comes. So Yashichi was trying to explain the fact that this is how far the enculturation has gone.
Yeah, that's right. So you'll find that I've been in situations where, for example, some people will say that we don't sing no songs. When they say we don't sing any other songs, they basically mean in this church you don't sing African songs,
like the choruses,
like what we call
the
rhythmic,
chorus, harmonic.
Like the African way of singing is called response.
Yes,
someone leads and the rest of us come in.
Yes.
So even when we sing Western songs like the hymns, we don't sing them the Western way. We sing them the African way. And some people really get almost enunciated, which I think is regrettable.
Yeah.
And right now, I think we have so many groups, particularly in Southern Africa, young people that are composing original music and in the African way and things like that. Good. But some people say, no, let's go back to, the Western expression of worship. But it is important to know that there's nothing wrong with that. But it has its own context. That is an expression of Christianity in the Western context. The Jews or the first Christians never used to sing like Americans or Europeans sing. They used to sing maybe more or less like how the Muslims sing today.
Like they chant.
Like chant.
Yes.
Until in England, the hymns then began to come in.
So music is one way that perhaps Christianity needs to be customized.
Yes, exactly.
But also when we look at economic development, the way of life.
Yes.
The way we're living now as Africans is not African. And I know it's broader and bigger than the Christian faith.
Yes.
But the worship where we come into a church, a building for worship, Africans never worship like that.
Yes, that's true.
Africans worshipped anywhere.
Yes.
In any setting.
Yes.
And how does that then apply to us now, where it looks like God only dwells in a church, in a building? When you're going to that church, you dress like you're really going to before God, and as if though God is not there in our homes, in our fields, in our mountains, in our rivers, in all the places. So how does that then help us as Christians to be really true Africans? And I don't want to go into the Africanism debate, but my question is, how do we ensure that this faith in a Savior, Jesus, and God the Creator, is meeting the African way of thinking in life?
Yes, I think this comes about because of the clash of civilizations, that collision that happened at the point we call colonialism.
Yeah.
And then new way of doing things and property rights and everything like that. So we all of a sudden you no longer have the space that you always used to have. It's now Mr. So-and-so's farm or something like that. And hence there's a new, there's an acculturation that takes place there and confinement and so on. But I think one of the most important things that the African should have maintained or should maintain is the aspect of, is the fact that in African traditional religion, there is no distinction between sacred and secular.
Okay.
Everything is just sacred. Yeah. So unlike the Western way of thinking, which is informed by Greek dichotomy, which says something can be on or it's off or something like that, and things.
Yeah.
It's either black or white. But the African way of doing things is just everything is just sacred.
Yeah.
With that in mind, it would be important for the African to take their Christianity not as something that they do on a particular day, at a particular space, and a particular time, but it's something that we are. It's not something that you become on a particular day, but it's who we are, wherever we are, and it informs and underpins everything you do.
Absolutely, which is why I want us to then talk about this very important aspect. Please feel free to comment and send us your feedback on this broadcast. There's this observation that I have made, I don't know if you have made it, that there's a correlation between where Christianity has been maybe historically stronger and is still practiced as maybe a common religion, with some of the very serious sins, let me put it that way, because the Bible talks about sin, which is the breaking of the law of God.
Yes.
We see a correlation between the growth of Christianity in certain countries, or historically growth of Christianity in those countries, and the practice of certain practices which are really not even condoned in the Bible. Practices such as abortion, morality, or let me say immorality. Sexual adultery and all the sins we can talk about, sexually violence. We have family birth control methods that may not be in line with the Bible. Homosexuality, which is a hot potato. And in many other challenges. And when the world looks at Christianity, it seems to me, and I don't know about others there, we now have a form of Christianity that is so liberal, that is allowing everything to go as long as Jesus loves you. It's okay. Your view, because I think this is really a challenge, and I want us to put it out there and say, could this be one of the reasons why Christianity is dying? The fact that we've become so liberal, we no longer rebuke sin. Even our pastors no longer preach against sin and holiness. The line is now a little bit blurred. It's more like Jesus loves everybody.
Yes, actually, I think your observation is quite on point. For example, so historically Christian...
I take it with a lot of respect coming from you. That is
quite on point. So countries that, or regions of the world that have been historically Christian, let's talk about Europe, for example, maybe United States and so on. You'll find that in this part of the world, there's been a lot of course, material growth and prosperity and so on, and maybe political and governance stability. But at the same time, there is a sharp decline also in Christianity. I can give an example. In the context of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, I read, I think that was 2012 in Ministry magazine, and they were saying that of all the about 12,000 Seventh-day Adventists who were in the city of London at that time, less than 200 were indigenous British people.
Wow.
The rest is either Asians, Africans, or people from the Caribbean.
Wow.
And even like in the United States, the church or Christianity is still strong there only because of immigrants. People were coming from Africa, people were coming from Latin America. For example, the Roman Catholic Church in the United States, it's about 70% immigrants who are going into those regions. So secularism and getting, being so permissive, accepting just about everything, So these kind of things have, number one, they have an effect of undermining the people's confidence. People who are already Christians, many of them, their confidence is undermined and they leave the faith, particularly young people. And then when you see things like evolution and so on, and arguing that there's no God, the regions that have argued for that the most, arguing that there's no God, it's the regions that have been historically Christian. And then you find that the promotion of this kind of things like abortion and redefinition of family and sexuality and things like that, they are being pushed down many countries' throats by historically Christian regions of the world. And believe you me, when people in other regions, like in Asia and in their own faiths, when they look at this, it's nauseating to them. They cannot imagine their children being Christians.
Yeah.
And at the same time, many people who are already Christians are beginning to embrace Eastern religions because they think it's more serious, it's more committed,
Conservative, yeah.
it's conservative, and so on. So indeed, Christianity is dying in Western parts of the world where it historically was very strong.
Yeah.
And another reason why that is happening is also because of the demographics. Because generally in these parts of the world, those particularly the white population, they generally do not have many children. So the birth rate and death rates, and usually in some countries we have got higher death rates than birth rates, and so the populations themselves are dying.
Yeah.
And together with the faith.
So it's clear when people travel,
Yes.
they don't only carry their religion,
Yes.
but their diseases as well. I'm speaking as a health professional now. So we see
Yes.
migration
Yes.
has everything to do with also the movement of the faith.
Yeah, that's very true.
And I guess that's where the Christian faith started from.
Yes.
Go ye into the
Yes.
whole world
Yes.
and preach the gospel.
Exactly.
And I like the analysis you have made because it really then gets us talking.
Yes.
I read an article, I'll share the link with the viewers perhaps in the comments below after this broadcast, that says the Christian faith or Christian churches that are dying in the West are those that are largely liberal.
Yeah, that's right.
But those that are Bible-based
Yes.
and are still teaching obedience
Yes.
and morality and
Yes.
abiding to the law of God and all the principles and tenets of the Bible,
Yes.
those are still growing.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think that's something to take home for our believers out there, that liberalism is a
Yes.
poison for the faith.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Because when you can't distinguish the right from the wrong and anything goes,
Yes.
those who have a conscience who
Yeah.
feel I no longer belong
Yeah,
here.
that's very true.
Now, I want us to get to the closure of our program. As we were discussing, I kept getting this question, and I'm going to put you on the spot here because you are a pastor.
Yes.
Your calling is to make disciples.
Yes.
Jesus said, go and preach the gospel.
Yes.
And we believe as Adventists, we have a last everlasting gospel to preach to a dying world. Revelation chapter 14,
Yes,
verse
yes,
6 to
yes, that's
12.
right.
And also Revelation chapter 18, verse 1 to 4, the mighty angel.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Paint us a picture looking ahead. Where are we going as a church? And if any bishop or pastor or whatever church leader from any denomination is listening out there, what is the call that the Christian church must put out to the world? And does the church still have a role to solve the world's problems? Is the gospel effective in changing and transforming lives, communities, and countries? Let's paint the future and say,
Yes.
where are we going?
Thank you so much. There's quite a number of points there which I'm trying to hit in a row. So first of all, for example, if you mentioned the Seventh-day Adventist Church, it's estimated the Seventh-day Adventist believers are about 21 million, thereabout around the world. The Adventist Church is the largest church ever to originate from the United States of America. And so it's about 21 million. But it's estimated that by 2030, 10 years from now, 50% of all Seventh-day Adventists will be in Africa.
Right here.
Right here in Africa.
Wow.
Along with the trend of how Christianity is growing in Africa generally. So that is one point. And then to what we were talking about earlier on, I would like to refer to a Bible text. That is Romans chapter 2, verse 24, which says, God's name is blasphemed among the Gentiles because of you. When as Christians we promote and we do things that are immoral and that are incompatible with the word of God, it causes God's name to be reviled among non-believers, people who are not Christians. They will say, no, if this is Christianity, then please count me out. I'm not going to be part of this. My children can never be part of this. And Jesus says, what you're supposed to be is to be the light of the world and the salt of the earth. So indeed, the church has a big role to play. There is much ethical and moral darkness in our world. And the Bible is the guiding light. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light for my path. So the call that we have and the burden that we have as Christians is to stick to the Bible and to the
Yes.
purity of the gospel, the way it is. Or it is, that may be easier said than done, because there are other forces, antagonistic forces, all around us, and lobby groups and things like that. But we need to have the kind of commitment and faith that the first Christians had, people like Paul. It was not easy preaching in their time. That is the call that Christianity has in our time. And so when you look at the statistics, it almost looks like this is a hopeless case, because the majority of this world's population are basically in Asia area, going into the Middle East, what is known as the 1040 window. And Christianity is so low in those areas.
That's true.
Yeah, it's so low.
I recently watched a documentary from Sri Lanka.
Yes.
The reason, obviously, is because one of my former master's colleague, Sharuni, comes from Sri Lanka. So I was quite interested to look at, and I was quite disappointed. I actually wrote an article on Facebook about it, that Christianity is actually 1%.
Oh, yeah, it's very low.
Yeah. And the closest bigger Christian denomination is the Catholic Church.
Yes.
But again, the Catholic Church is on the northern part, which is the war-torn part. And so, again, the view of Christianity in that region is that they are the ones responsible for the instability, because they partnered with the rebel forces. And we see quite a lot even in Africa, where the church has been involved in politics. And so we've had a faith that has been involved in secularism and worldly politics, and has compromised the integrity that you're talking about now. And therefore, we need God to help the church.
Yes, definitely, we do. The estimates are that sometime during this century, Islam is going to overtake Christianity in terms of numbers and distribution around the globe. Those are the estimates if current trends remain constant. Okay? So if current trends remain constant, for example, in Islam, someone can have up to 4 wives, and so on and so on. And they
can have more children.
More children. Because that's one of the ways in which a faith grows. That's the biological growth.
But
so,
I would say...
I'm not saying that Christians should have 4 wives. Okay. Yeah, but I'm saying these are some of the variables that contribute.
That's true.
Yes.
But Africa still has a very high birth rate.
Yeah, it still has.
And so the whole world is worried about the way we're growing our families.
Yeah.
And they want us to slow down, because like you were saying, 50% of the population of Christians will be in Africa very soon. It's because we have more children. And that's God's model of saying, when you give birth, you train them to be a godly seed, according to Malachi. So I want to bring this to a close for our viewers out there who may be wondering, so what needs to be taught to the world right now? Do we have a solution for the world's problems as Christianity? I want us to wrap up with that, and also give me your sense of what is the gospel that we should be preaching to the world. Do we have a solution for this world? What is the solution? Because we're seeing Jesus is the answer. But the question is, what is the problem that we are solving with Jesus?
Yes, that we are solving with Jesus. I wish I could confidently say yes. I think the most important thing that I can do as a Christian is to be true to Christianity.
Okay. Which means?
Which means, unfortunately, in many cases, I may be a Christian, but I put my nationality first. I put my tribe first. I put my race first. I put
even my denomination first.
Yes, there are so many other considerations that I put first ahead of Christianity, to such an extent that the commission that we're given to go and preach the gospel is now compromised and undermined. For example, the greatest, purveyors of violence in this world are people that are in historically Christian countries. It's Christian countries that have threatened many countries that they can wipe them off the map of this world. So that is how we are perceived by others, you know. And so the most important thing at whatever level, but beginning at an individual level, is for God to help us to be true to Christianity.
Yes.
For example, Mahatma Gandhi. You know, Gandhi came into South Africa as a simple lawyer, born in England, in India, trained in England as a lawyer, but came and was working here. And it was here that he was put through so much trouble when he was thrown out of the train the other day, traveling from Durban to Joburg. And, this was a Hindu guy.
Yeah.
And eventually Gandhi says, I love the Jesus of the Bible, but not the Jesus of the Christians.
Yes. And
Because
he says, I will be a Christian when I see one.
When I see one,
Because he had not seen any.
he had not seen any.
So we're not good ambassadors of our faith.
So when we put, let's say, our tribe, our race, ahead of our faith,
Yeah.
look at people like, I can mention influential figures like Malcolm X, people like Muhammad Ali. I mean, these are people who abandoned Christianity because of how they were treated as black people by white Christians. And they said, well, if this is what Christianity is about, don't count me in. And so what we need is just to be true, to walk humbly with our God, to love mercy and justice.
Yes.
I mean, this is what we need to do. Christianity has what it takes according to the blueprint, which is the Bible.
Yes.
But I think we should just stop being hypocritical and pray for God to help us to be truly Christian.
I wish we could continue, Mfundis. There's so much I would have wanted us to talk about. But thank you so much for the time, and may God bless you.
So thank you for having
We
me.
hope we'll have you at some point on MelVee as well.
I look forward to that too.
Thank you so much. And to our viewers out there, what a privilege and what a moment we had. Thank you so much for sticking along with us. This is Melusi Ndhlalambi. It's been a privilege to bring you tonight's topic. Please, I would like to encourage you, join and like MelVee Broadcasting on Facebook. But you can also go to YouTube and subscribe to this channel. And for those who have supported us over the years, I would like to invite you to become a member and support this ministry so that we can reach more people as a Christian ministry. God bless you. We're going to go out with a special song.
Amazwi angcwele agcinelwe uhambo lwethu khona emhlabeni asichazele inhliziyo yakhe ovuma ngena enhlizweni yakhe amazwi okuphila asipha amandla ayasinwetha lapha emhlabeni siyalahleka amazwi endulo ekhaya amazwi amahle aguqulile inhliziyo zethu yebo sizile baba siyavuma baba sizoni baba enhlizweni zethu amazwi amahle Yemthethweni siyawakholwa ukuba siphile njengamaKristu wena hamba ngokuqonda uyigcine emthethweni ukholwe kuJehova amazwi angcwele agcinelwe uhambo lwethu Holy words of the faith handed down to this age came to us through through sacrifice. Oh, hear the faithful words of Christ, patient words ever true.
They can
Changing me
They can
and
change.
changing you.
They can change
We have come with open hearts.
your
Oh,
heart.
let the ancient words